Welcome back. I want to use a new library here. Now, in our app, right over here, when we log in, ideally I want to have perhaps a profile picture, and then if I click on it, it's a drop-down where I can say sign out, or maybe profile, and a profile pops up of the user. And I want to use this React Strap component library. We can simply install it by using the React Strap package. And as long as we're using React, it allows us to use Bootstrap for components. And if you go to components, you'll see that we can use a ton of things, including the dropdown that I'm interested in. Look at that. That would be pretty nice to have on our profile. And we see that it gives us a nice demo of what we can do and gives you pretty much copy and paste code, which is really, really nice. Now, some of you might be asking, why not just build this out ourselves? One is that, well, it's going to be a lot faster than building it out ourselves, and this is something that we can do fairly simply with some JavaScript and CSS, something that we've already covered before in my previous courses. But also, when it comes to building fast and making sure that our app works, we don't really want to worry too much about having a proper drop-down functionality. We can just put in pieces into our app, and then if we really want to remove libraries, we can do so afterwards. But I also want to show you the dangers of adding third-party libraries. As you'll see, when we add React Strap, it's going to conflict with a library we already have. One that is called, if we go back to our front-end application and go into our source index.js, we're using tachyons as CSS libraries that has styled our app up until this point. And I'm going to demonstrate for you why we want to be careful when we're just grabbing more and more libraries, adding them onto our project. So I think it's going to be a good lesson for us as well. All right, well, we know that we want to install this package, so let's just say npm install, and it's going to be called React Strap. All right, perfect. The next thing we want to do, again, going back to the website, we also see here that we need to add Bootstrap because the React Strap package comes with the components, but not with the styling that is Bootstrap. So just to get the styling that they already have preset, it looks like we can just npm install Bootstrap. And if you're using a newer version of npm, you don't need to do -- save, but just to show you that it's the same thing, I'm going to copy that. And then let's bring our front end up over here so it's a little bit closer, since we'll be working on that in this video. So we're installing Bootstrap, and then going back here, we see that we need to import our CSS. And from there, we can start importing whatever components that React Strap needs. Now, let's import this CSS file. And if you see over here, we now can go into our index.js and import Bootstrap with the minified CSS. Now, here's the thing, and here's how things work with Create React App. They grab all the CSS files that it finds, and it bundles them together. So right now, the way we have things, Tachyons, which already has some CSS classes that we're going to be using, if you go into app.js, for example, or actually, let's go into a component. Let's say we're going to go into the face recognition. We see over here that we're using these classes like MT2, Center MA, that are actual Tachyon classes. Now, because of the way Create React App works, these are going to get bundled, and then the Bootstrap styles are going to get bundled. And whatever name clashes they might have, let's say that both of them have a button class, well, the Bootstrap one is going to overwrite it because it's going to be after Tachyons. And we know that we like our app the way it is. So let's move this up here so that if there is anything that's being overridden with CSS, Tachyons is going to win out. So let's save that. We have Bootstrap all loaded and ready to go. I think it's time for us to build our drop-down functionality. So now that we have some components that we're going to be able to use. We also have tachyons set up. The first thing I want to do is create perhaps an avatar or a profile little circle icon on the top right, so that when we click on it, it's going to have a drop-down box that says View Profile or Sign Out. Now, luckily for us, we're going to be using tachyons as well because it already has some pre-built CSS for us. If I go back here, I have tachyons, and if we go to avatars, we see that, all right, we have a couple of options that we can use. So let's say we want to use the circle border, and look at that, we already have the CSS that we need for it. Let's go back to our app and have this circle appear. If we log in here, right over here instead of the sign out. And just so we don't have to keep signing in and out, in and out, in and out, let's go back and go to our app.js. And in our initial state, make our route equal to home. If I save this and go back, let's refresh. Oops. I have to do npm start again. I have to go npm start again because we did install some things. Yes, port 3001. And there we go. We're logged in now. We don't have a user. You see that it's completely blank because we haven't logged in with anything. We don't have that profile information. But we also see that our styling just got messed up quite a lot, actually. We don't have that nice styling that we had before. What's happening here? Well, again, back to our discussion about CSS. You see that index.css is right at the top here. And if we look in index.css, our font family, well, is described in here. And the Bootstrap library we just installed and added to our website is overriding our font family. Again, what you want to do is ideally bring that CSS all the way down and also just keep CSS together in a separate little section so that you know what's overriding what. And again, going back to just keep adding things over and over. This is a small enough app that we notice the changes right away. But as soon as you introduce a third-party library, and especially one that affects CSS, you might unintentionally change some of your web app functionality as well as look. So you really want to be careful with this. In a real project, I probably wouldn't be using these multiple libraries, but I wanted to demonstrate that how dangerous it can be. If I save this now and go back, all right, everything is nice and smooth. We don't have the user yet because, well, we're kind of cheating and signing in, but we have our setup all done. And ideally, we want this profile icon that we saw in Tachyons right here at the top. And then if I click on it, a drop-down menu shows up. So let's think about this. The first thing we probably want to do is to build that profile icon, that circular icon. And just to keep things clean, let's create a new folder, call it profile. And within this folder, we'll create a new component. We'll say that this will be the profile icon component. And within here, we can do our regular component build that we do with React. We want to import React from the React package. We also want to import some items from React Bootstrap, but the toggle function, let's not worry about it for now. Let's just work on getting that circular avatar on our page. We can just say class profile icon extends react.component, or I could just do something like this as well, but for now, this is fine. And we want to export default the profile icon. All right, now thinking about this icon over here has a bit of state, right? It's either clicked on and the toggle is open or it's closed. And ideally, I mean, that's a simple true or false Boolean flag. We could move that all the way up to app.js or include a Redux store to contain that state. But for small state that is really very specific to this profile icon and doesn't affect any other components, I like to keep the state in here because anybody that comes on to the project and needs to adjust something on the profile icon has everything in one place. So let's create our constructor method that will accept props and do our regular super call. And let's just say that this dot state is going to equal the, let's call it drop down open. And we'll set it to false to begin with. All right, and we also have our render function. And within this render function, what should we do? Well, let's get our profile avatar from Tachyons. We'll return and let's say within here, if we go back to Tachyons, we can just copy and paste this little snippet, paste it on here. Ooh, gotta fix this. And you see that the div is not highlighted in red, and that's because this is JSX. Remember, we have to make sure that we close our tags. Even though this is valid HTML5 without the closing slash, in JSX we have to close our tags, no matter what. All right, so let's save that. And if I go back, well, nothing's gonna be shown. We have to actually import this in our homepage. Let's actually import this in our page. If we go back to our app, we see that we have this area that we want to add it to. And this area is where the sign in and register component are. Luckily for us, that's just right at the top over here in the navigation component. And because of the name, it's fairly easy to see. And we see over here that, yep, this is just adding the sign out, sign in, register components. Let's actually add this. Let's add the import, import the profile icon from the profile, or capital profile, and let's say profile icon file. Now we have access to this component. Within the is signed in, instead of having the sign out, or for now we can keep the sign out just to have it there, we'll add a profile icon, and right now it doesn't really do anything. So we're just gonna pass it like that. Let's save. Looks like everything is fine. If I go back and refresh, let's see over here. Oh, and you see that it's checking is signed in. We're not checking the route, we're checking to make sure that is signed in is true. So we have to go back to app.js, make sure that is signed in is set to true, so that our navigation bar also changes. Hey, look at that. We have a nice little avatar here, all set up for us. Let's take a break. In the next video, we're gonna keep adding on to this functionality, make it look a little bit prettier, and hopefully add our drop-down menu. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.